My lords, I thank all noble lords who have expressed support for my bill, and I thank the noble Lord Winston for his medical lecture on so-called fetal anomalies, serious fetal anomalies. My lords, I address the noble Lord Winston with respect, but I also address him and all other noble lords as an equal. I should say at the outset that I totally reject the very premise of this amendment. Other noble lords have already explained why the amendment is totally inappropriate and indeed crassly insensitive from a Northern Ireland perspective, in particular when it is linked to Amendment 8. I offer a disabled person's perspective on why it is unacceptable. I have been consistently clear that the purpose of my bill, a disability rights bill, is to bring the law as it applies to disability discrimination before birth into line with the laws that your Lordship's House has already passed to counter disability discrimination after birth. Noble lords will know that I accepted an amendment at committee stage for an impact review as a logical amendment to a logical bill. However, in the context of a bill which promotes disability equality, where discrimination begins before birth, this cynical amendment is not remotely logical. Indeed, it runs counter to the very essence of my bill. The amendment reinforces discrimination because it singles out even more acutely a particular group for destruction on grounds of disability. It seeks to legitimise their destruction after 24 weeks with terminology that commands no clinical consensus, and despite the fact that cell-free fetal DNA can first be detected in maternal blood as early as 7 weeks gestation, which means that genetic or chromosomal abnormalities are being detected well in advance of 24 weeks. So what justification is there for abortion after 24 weeks on the grounds of so-called serious fetal anomaly after 24 weeks? Some noble lords may have seen that I recently asked the Department of Health about the number of fetal abnormalities diagnosed in each of the last 5 years. The answer was that the information is not collected centrally. So I followed up and I asked about the number of fetal abnormalities diagnosed after 24 weeks in each of the past 5 years. The answer was the same. The information is not collected centrally. My lords, I find that revealing, not because information is being concealed, but because it reflects the reality, the truth of the situation. Those noble lords who were invited to attend a meeting on this issue, which I understand was held somewhere in the House on Wednesday, to be forgiven for thinking there is some great medical authority, some clear medical consensus behind the definition of fatal fetal abnormality. There isn't, because there isn't an agreed definition. Indeed, the consensus is that what is considered fatal or life-limiting involves a degree of subjective judgment which is influenced by understandings and by the availability of technology, both of which can change with time. The noble lords who received the invitation to this meeting might also have got the impression, as was intended by the wording of the invitation, that those 230 disabled babies aborted after 24 weeks in 2015 had all been diagnosed with severe or fatal fetal abnormalities. They weren't. Of the 659 babies aborted for the crime of having Down syndrome, for example, 2 were aborted at 25 weeks, 1 at 26 weeks, 1 at 28, 1 at 30, another at 31, 3 at 32 weeks, 2 at 33, 2 at 34, and 1, my lords, at 39 weeks. The question for me, therefore, apart from the obvious one of why the severely disabled member of your Lordship's House sponsoring this bill wasn't even contacted about the meeting, is twofold. Firstly, how do the organisations behind the meeting, the British Pregnancy Advisory Service and the Family Planning Association, and the Organisation for Termination for Abnormality, now named euphemistically as Antenatal Results and Choices, how do they know that the 230 disabled babies aborted in 2015 after 24 weeks because of their disability, how do they know they had all been diagnosed with severe fetal abnormalities? The answer is that they don't know. The Department of Health has already said that the information is not held centrally. So neither of these organisations, none of these organisations know this, and neither does the noble lord. So my second question is, why should they have insinuated? Why should they have implicitly claimed this? The answer is in their overtly discriminatory agenda, which informs both this amendment and the noble lord's complete failure even to make contact with me. My lords, this amendment is completely inappropriate and incompatible with the progress achieved on disability rights which your Lordship's House can be rightly proud of helping to secure. And that is quite apart from the insensitivity to me as a disabled and equal member of your Lordship's House, the crass insensitivity of the noble lord hijacking my disability equality bill in order to advance a blatantly discriminatory eugenic agenda. Of course, I understand why those who oppose my bill are desperate to misrepresent it, to say it's all about abortion, which it barely touches, and to ignore disability equality, to ignore disability rights before birth. Their message is stark and bleak. The message is, let's ignore the fact that these disabled babies are human beings with an equal right to exist. Let's reclassify them. Let's call them fetal anomalies. Let's go one better and call them serious fetal anomalies. What does it matter that the Department of Health collects no data centrally on so-called fatal fetal anomalies? What does it matter as long as we can use the term to dehumanise? Well, my lords, this fetal anomaly, this proud member of your lordship's house is having none of it. I utterly reject this medical mindset that clings to the idea that a disabled baby is a medical failure to be eradicated through abortion. I beg no one from my equality. I know I have as much right as anyone to be alive. However, should the noble lord decide not to withdraw his amendment and instead to divide the House, I do ask humbly that all noble lords stand with me and people with congenital disabilities and affirm that we are all equal.